Okay, step two for the tutorial on the TR-808. For this next step, we're actually going to be programming in our beats. There's two beats we're going to program. This Raga Bhairav by Saranjit Singh. He was an Indian electronic music composer, as in East Indian. And then this other one, Clear by Cybotron. And I think down at the bottom of this tutorial, I'm going to put links to these songs so you can hear them on Spotify or whatever. I don't have those in just yet, but if you'd like to, I think that's kind of helpful to hear the original ones and see what they sound like. These little sheets that I have posted down here on this rubric are the beat program. So let me explain these just a little bit before we get launched into recording them. They're visual representations of the beat. And so on the left hand side you have the sound that we're programming. So BD, if you remember, is bass drum, and the black keys will tell you which one to turn on. So like for a bass drum, 1, 5, 9, 13. Okay. And this, it's got it broken up into two different sections, your steps 1 through 16 and then steps 17 through 32. That'll kind of make more sense as we get programming them. But if you look, like I say, these abbreviations here, they are listed up above here just in case you forget what they are. You'll know that way, but I think it'll make sense once we get going. So let's program this first beat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of shrink this up here. Let's scroll out here. I want to be able to see both windows at the same time. So I've got my audio tool over here, and then I've got my tutorial over here. So let's zoom in on this rhythm real quick. There we go. That'll be about as big as I can get them both on the screen at the same time. Hopefully you guys can see that. And you might just want to write it down. This is pretty quick once we get rolling, but I just wanted to show it to you real quick. Okay, so our Saranjit Singh, first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we're on the right pattern. So make sure that you are on, I'm going to zoom in even a little bit more on this. Make sure you're on pattern 1, bank A. It should be there by default. Step 2, change your pattern length to 32. Just click on that plus button until it says 32 right there. All right. And then let's just start programming the first sound. So the bass drum, get this zoom just right. There we go. So the bass drum, make sure your dial's on BD, or click on this bass drum sound right there. Make sure that red light's on. And for our sounds, the bass drum is going to happen on 1, 5, 9, and 13. So let's come over here. We'll go 1, 5, 9, 13. Very easy, right? And then I think it's a good idea just to do all the sounds all at once. So we're going to have to like switch back and forth which steps we're programming. So right now we're programming 1 through 16. So if I want to program steps 17 through 32, the next 16 beats basically, I'll just flip that switch down, and then let's look over here, 1, 5, 9, and 13 again, right? So I'm going to go ahead, 1, 5, 9, 13. So we just programmed the bass drum. Let's look at the next sound we need on here. We need SD, which is snare drum. So again, you can either click on the dial and switch it to SD, or just click on where it says snare drum. And for our snare drum pattern, it's going to happen on 5 and 13 for both steps, right? So let's go back to steps 1 through 16 first of all and put it on 5 and 13. And then we'll switch back to 17 through 32 and again 5 and 13. All right, so we've got kick and snare programmed. Not a lot more on this going, so we've got HC, so let's flip the dial to HC. you might be like, wait a minute, I don't have an HC. Where's HC? I don't see it. So HC, if you remember from up above, stands for high conga, and it's on the same dial place as HT for high tom, right? So to get to your high conga, we actually need to set the dial to high tom and then flip this switch up. So we're programming the high conga sound. All right, so make sure to do that first, and then let's program these hits. Just happening on beat 3 and 4. So I'm going to flip my switch back to steps 1 through 16, push 3 and 4, and that's it. Doesn't even happen in the next step, so just those two. The next one is MA, and again, that's a secondary function of hand claps. That MA is for maracas. Okay, so click on CP for hand clap, and then you want to flip the switch up to maracas. All right, and this one's super easy to program because it's just everything is turned on all the way across, right? So I'm going to come over here, and you can actually just click and drag all across and make sure that every red light comes on. And I'm going to flip the switch to my next set of steps, 17 through 32, same thing. Just click and drag all the way across, make sure every light's on. All right, we're getting close. We've got one more sound, OH, which stands for open hi-hat. And that's going to happen on beat 11 and 15, just in the second set of 16 steps. So 11 and 15. So let's switch our step number to our second set, 32. Make our sound go to open hi-hat, and then 11 and 15. Okay, well that's it for this drum pattern. Let's see what it sounds like. I'm just going to push spacebar for play. Cool, and if you want, you can change up some of your sounds, maybe a shorter kick. Okay, should sound like that if you did it right. Sharanjit Singh. Let's do one more. So I'm going to come over here and zoom in on this other beat here. So this is the Cybotron beat that we're going to do next. Get it nice and big. And first thing we need to do on our rhythm composer is, switch our pattern. So we did our first beat on A1, so let's switch to A2 now. And then A1 will still stay our first beat that we programmed. Change your pattern length to 32 again. And first thing we're going to do again is our bass drum pattern. So let's go ahead and click on our bass drum sound, or turn the dial to BD. And this is going to happen on 1, 4, 7, 11. 1, 4, 7, 11. Cool. And then let's go ahead and, oops, I was on the second step here. Good thing I caught that. Let's turn those off. We need to be on our first set of 16. 1, 4, 7, 11. There we go. Now go to our next set of 16, and it's going to happen on 1, 7, and 11. 1, 7, 11. Okay, that's the bass drum. Snare drum. Switch to snare drum sound, switch up to the next steps, and it's going to happen on 5 and 13 and 5 and 13 for both. So 5, 13, switch down the step, 5, 13. Cool. None of these sounds. Next one is going to be CP. So let's switch to CP, which is hand clap, and make sure that the switch is now flipped down to from maracas to hand clap. And for this one, we're going to be on 5 and 13. So 5, 13. And then same thing for our second step. Oh, messed up on the step again. You guys got to catch me on those. All right. OH, open hi-hat. It's going to happen on 5 and 13 also. So let's make sure we're on the right step. Good. 5, 13. Switch to another step. 5, 13. And finally, closed hi-hat. This one, you know, you can remember 1, 2, 3, 4, or, you know, but I just remember 4 on, 4 off, 4 on, 4 off, right? And it's color coded for that, real easy, right? So I'm going to switch to my closed hi-hat sound. Make sure I'm on the first step. Just turn on the first 4, skip the next 4, turn on the next 4, skip the next 4, and do the same thing on steps 17 through 32. All right, there's our pattern. Let's see what this one sounds like. Okay, so you got two programs, 2 beats programmed. Just want to point this out. If we go back to pattern 1, you can play that. Let's play it. And if you'll notice, it sounds a little bit different, and that's because our switch that we flipped up to maracas, we switched back down to hand claps when we did this second pattern. And so if things sound funky, it might be because you made some of those switches, right? So if you wanted to hear pattern 1, remember you also got to flip it back up to maracas. Now it should sound right. Okay, so that's one kind of quirky thing about the Rhythm Composer too, is that these switches, I wish they would automatically switch when you change patterns, but they don't. And again, that's just like the original drum machine, you know, it wouldn't automatically move its switches either when you switch patterns. So in a way, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but in another way, it's kind of cool because it's just like you're using the real thing, right? So anyway, that is it for this step. Email me if you have any questions. We'll program one more beat in the next step, and then you get to program some of your own beats for the final step. So tune in.